Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Friday. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday, June 27th, and that's Central Time. So thank you for joining today. I'm going to be continuing the reading of the Difference Engine. Let me go ahead and bring up the book, the picture of the book, so that you can see what it looks like. Let's see if this works. Yep. So that's the book that I'll be reading from today. I'll continue where I left off a couple of weeks ago. Before I get too far into it, let me make sure that I'm streaming on the right channels and that everybody can hear me okay. Go ahead and make a comment and let me know. I do not see the live stream at all. Let's see. Okay. I don't know why I don't see it. That's so weird. I wonder if I forgot to stream to our main channel. I see it on our backup channel, but I don't see it on our main channel at all. So make sure if you are watching, make sure you're looking at the main channel. Do you really? JP is talking to me in the background that he sees it on the main channel. I do not. Usually I see it coming up and I don't see it at all. That is really strange. Well, I don't see it, so I don't know. We'll have to take your word for it, but I don't see it. So we have a couple of YouTube channels. We have Book of Hours, which is YouTube, and then we have Book of Hours Media, which is our backup channel. Since many of our projects were getting deleted off of YouTube, especially over the last couple of years during the COVID situation. So yeah, could you put the link to the YouTube video in the chat? If you're listening, could you put the link in the chat if you can do that for me, JP? Because I'm not seeing it at all. We're also on Rumble, so you can find us on Rumble at Book of Hours. There it is. Okay. That is so weird. It's never really given me any kind of trouble like that in the past. So seems to be good. Seems to be streaming well. You never know, right? Okay, so before I continue, let me get rid of this and come back up here. Hi, my name is Julie. This is the channel Book of Hours. Every Friday, I like to go live and read from the Difference Engine, which is a book that was written, I don't know, like 20 years ago or so. And the book that I chose is something that we just pulled off of our bookshelf. I've never read it before, so as I read through the book, this will be the first time I'm reading it, as well as you listening to me reading it. I would recommend picking it up. It is an alternative history. So it's 1855. The Industrial Revolution is in full and inexorable swing, powered by steam-driven cybernetic engines. Charles Babbage perfects his analytical engine, and the computer age arrives a century ahead of its time. And three extraordinary characters race toward a rendezvous with history. And the future Sybil Gerard, a fallen woman, a politician's tart, but daughter of a Luddite agitator, Edward Leviathan Mallory, explorer and paleontologist, and Lawrence Oliphant, a diplomat, a mystic, and a spy. Their adventure begins with the discovery of a box of punched engine cards of unknown origin and purpose. Cards someone wants badly enough to kill for. So it's a great story. I'm enjoying it so far. And I'll get to it in 1 minute. But before I do that, um, oops, that is not. I'm sorry. I'm doing stuff in the background, and I accidentally pulled up the wrong program. Okay, so before I do that, I want to read about something that has been, or at least recite something that has been on my mind. That's very important to me. I have a lot of programs open in the background, so just bear with me. You can't see it, but there's a lot of craziness going on my screen right now that's hidden from you. All right, so here we go. Has your identity and even behavior been seized? In the age of engineered reality, it's almost impossible to remain true to yourself and then project that true self onto the world when most of your projections are engineered through social media and military backed psychological operations. Whether you're addicted to your own user feeds on your favorite social media pages or addicted to a corporate state backed news cycle, your reality is being engineered, which means you are being engineered. To break through this social engineering and succumb to the operations behind the cycle of constant information that your brain and emotions were never meant to process, follow the FATE model. So, FATE is an acronym for focus, authority, tribe, and emotions. Focus. Your attention and your focus is being hijacked through shocking dialogue, repetitive imagery or videos, and fear cycles, such as the latest atrocity, which tends to hold a 24 to 48-hour loop. This grabs your focus away from yourself and what you need to do to improve your personal life and hijacks it onto user feeds or a constant news cycle. This loop is in competition with your amygdala, which is an overdrive. Your amygdala is trying to process all these emotions that are being manufactured in you, and the process dulls your focus. Keywords when you're being attacked are words like unprecedented. So ask yourself, why is this being pushed onto me so aggressively? Or this is an atrocious display of human rights violations, but who's holding the camera? If one particular subject matter is suddenly getting disproportionate airtime, then your skepticism should kick in. And when you train yourself to be skeptical, your emotional responses will have an opportunity to sort of even out, and you can find yourself again and focus on what's important. So that was focus. This is authority. Watch closely for experts and trusted figures and how they lead a narrative of a feeling into contradictory belief systems. When authority figures speak outside of their expertise, this is also cause for caution. Watch how they lie about their credentials or use their authority to exploit their own agenda without providing transparency or even proof of what it is they're trying to sell you. This can often subtly transform them. What were once seemingly benevolent and well meaning authority figures, they have now transformed transformed or transitioned into hard-lined authoritarians and can leave you bewildered at the outcome, or worse yet, aligning with their authoritarianism, thus capturing you into a Stockholm syndrome like state of being. Stay skeptical of authority figures and keep a distance. Most authority figures are popularized in our social media cycles and are narcissists. Don't confront a narcissist. Protect yourself and your reputation and your energy and your own sense of purpose. By examining the authority figures from a distance and then analyze their behavior through this, then analyze their behavior through a distance. And then through this analytical approach, your emotions are settled and secure, and the logic side of your brain will show how weak their arguments or positions are, and it's easier to dismiss them rather than become outraged by their false delivery. So that was authority. And the next one is tribe. So watch for language that polarizes, us versus them type of language. Watch out for tribes that call the other tribe conspiracy theorists, or one tribe condemning the other for not being patriotic or having family values. Watch out for terms like science minded versus denier. This is to engineer tribalism in you, to force you to identify and pick a side, which is actually antithetical to your growth and maturity and your own personal perceptions of the world, your own unique intelligent design, and your own valuable unique gifts that you can give to the world. Subscribing to a tribe keeps uh subscribing to a tribe keeps you infantilized and in the constant state of seeking approval from your peers. Remind yourself that you don't exist for someone else's approval. Tribes can transform to cults, and cults are dangerous, difficult to get out of, and can cause irreparable psychological damage. To find absolute success and tranquility in your own personal life, don't jump into a tribe on social media, and allow your internal thoughts and belief systems, wholly formed by you and your lived experiences, to be hijacked just so you can satisfy your longing to belong to something. You belong to yourself. I'm still in the process of, kind of writing this. So this is very rough. This is just a rough edition of something that I'm going to be working on in a little while, sometime in the next couple of weeks, probably. So the last one is emotion. Watch out for social media or media voices and statements, images, articles, or information that trigger emotions like hope or outrage or fear. When information crosses your news feed that encourages these emotions, they're false emotions. It's false hope, false outrage, and even false fear. Authentic fear or authentic hope or authentic outrage can only come about when something personal happens to you or something true around you in your lived experience happens. Since emotional responses suppress critical thinking, you may find yourself doing or saying things that are offensive to others without even realizing it. You may engage in behavior that could backfire on you and is antithetical to your practical nature, where you are in control of your life. You may leave yourself vulnerable to deep manipulation. Whenever there is an emotionally charged story, you can guarantee that the story is meant to target you, hijack your emotions, and weaponize them against you. Even just making a comment, an innocent comment on social media in response to something that is an absolute human right atrocity has set you up by asking yourself, why do I feel this outrage over this story? Or why is this story causing so much emotion in me when other real issues right outside my front door are being ignored? When you start asking the right questions about why you're being manipulated into an emotional response, your emotions no longer dictate your life. And you can look at your feeds and news cycles with a critical eye. In conclusion, billions of people on the planet are unaware of how their identity and personal behavior and even their outlook on life has been captured. The culprit behind this capture is social media. Social media has captured a person's personal myth or personal goal and hijacked it into the false sense of pleasure and satisfaction one gets when something they post or comment on is supported by the group. This has changed the fabric of society drastically and ripped apart our social contract. The best way to get back to the authentic life and accept your lived experiences, no matter how painful or even humiliating, is to slowly wean yourself off of social media platforms and check in with the FATE acronym during this weaning off process: focus, authority, tribe, and emotion. Your personal myth or your personal achievements have not been hijacked and calcified. You can get them back and live a successful life, thriving and authentic to yourself. So you are your own person. And I think that this social media uh, situation um, has caused, has caused people to forget that. So let's try to remember that. So thank you for listening to that. Let's see if I can get rid of these screens that are up here that you can't see, but they're causing a disruption in my feed. All right, so the next thing I want to show you is the Substack page. So over the last couple of days, the subscribers and the patrons have uh, have read some of the things that I've been writing on the page. Let me see if there's our social media. I'm sorry, there's our Substack page. So I've been writing a lot about the state of Mississippi lately, especially things that are happening right outside my front door. So this whole week, I've written, I think, two or three pieces. So I encourage people to read my Substack and apply the things that I've been talking about on Substack regarding what's going on here in Biloxi, Mississippi. Maybe apply that to what's happening in your life. Maybe if you see some things that are going on, um, civically or, in your community, and see, you're not the only one. In other words, there's a lot going on. Still really happy with the choice of moving to Biloxi, Mississippi. Don't want to give anybody that impression that we are not happy with that decision. So this one was called, yeah, I'm on the right page. This one was called Mississippi is awarded the Golden Shovel Award. So please read that. And then this one is called Dear Biloxi Residents, Turn Your Efforts Inward. And then the next one is called An Unfair Felling of a Majestic Live Oak. So read those and keep up to date on what's going on with us. Subscribe to our Substack. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't yet, if you feel like it. It's I for quite a few years, we were doing video essays, and creating, you know, we even were doing cartoons and creating video essays to sort of assimilate our opinion about what's going on in the world. We were, putting to sort of this. We had a lot of creative energy describing what was happening. But over the last few years, there's a lot that's been going on. We moved from the north to the south, so that took a long time. And then I had to travel, every 6 weeks back north, all throughout 2023. So there wasn't a lot of time to be creative. There wasn't a lot of time to work on producing any more of these videos. We were doing interviews and a bunch of stuff. And there is somebody that reached out to me that wants to have another discussion with me. And she's also a Southern girl. So, maybe once I have a little bit of time, I'll be able to settle down and start that up again as well. If you're listening, I haven't forgotten about you. I would love to chat with you again. So that was our Substack page. So if you want to follow us over there, that'd be great. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do next is go for it. So I read you the back of the book, so you know a little bit about what it is. Let me make sure that I'm on the right. Yep, that's it. So I read the online version because it's just easier, or else I'm like this the whole time. And that's no fun. So some people might like it, but for me, it's really disruptive to hold the book up like that. So let me go for it. So I'm just going to start reading. If you're listening for the first time and you have no idea where I am in the book, feel free to go back to previous live streams and listen. I usually read for like 15, 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, but so you should be able to pick up pretty quickly, even if you've not been paying attention up until this point. Okay. So Mallory, still smarting from this morning's meeting with the nominations committee of the Geographical, thanked the man rather brusquely. Somehow he didn't know which devious strings had been pulled backstage, but the plot was clear enough. Folk had maneuvered his way onto the Geographical's nominations committee. Folk, whose aquatic theory of Brontosaurus had been spurned by Huxley's museum, had taken Mallory's herbivore hypothesis as a personal attack, with the result that an ordinary, pleasant formality had become yet another public trial for radical catastrophism. Mallory had won his fellowship in the end, Oliphant having laid the ground too well for Folk's last-minute ambush to succeed, but the business still rankled. He sensed damage to his reputation. Dr. Edward Mallory, Leviathan Mallory, as the penny papers insisted on having it, had been made to seem fanatical or even petty. And this in front of dignified geographers of the first rank, men like Button, Button of Mecca and Eliot of the Congo. Mallory followed his map, muttering to himself. The fortunes of scholarly warfare, Mallory thought, had never seemed to favor him as they did Thomas Huxley. Huxley's views with the powers that be had only distinguished him as a wizard of debate, while Mallory was reduced to trudging this gaslit mausoleum where he hoped to identify a despicable racetrack pimp. Taking his first turn, he discovered a marble bas relief depicting the mosaic plague of frogs, which he had always numbered among his favorite biblical tales. Pausing in admiration, he was very nearly run down by a steel pushcart stacked to the gunwales with decks of punch carts. Gangway, yelped the carter in brass buttoned serge and a messenger's billed cap. Mallory saw with astonishment that the man wore wheeled boots, stout lace ups, fitted with miniature axles and spokeless rounds of rubber. The fellow shot headlong down the hall, expertly steering the heavy cart, and vanished around a corner. Mallory passed a hall blocked off with striped sawhorses where two apparent lunatics in gaslit gloom crept slowly about on all fours. Mallory stared. The creepers were plump, middle aged women dressed throat to foot in spotless white, their hair confined by snug elastic turbans. From a distance, their clothing had the eerie look of winding sheets or winding sheets. As he watched, one of the pair lurched heavily to her feet and began to tenderly wipe the ceiling with a sponge mop on a telescoping pole. They were charwomen. Following his map to a lift, he was ushered in by a uniformed attendant and carried to another level. The air here was dry and static, and the corridors were busier. There were more of the odd looking policemen ad- uh, admixed with serious looking gentlemen of the capital, barristers, perhaps, or attorneys, or the legislative agents of great capitalists, men whose business it was to acquire and retail knowledge of their attitudes and influence of the public. Political men, in short, who dealt entirely in the intangible. And though they presumably had their wives or their children or their brownstone homes, here they struck Mallory as vaguely ghost like or ecclesiastical. Some yards on, Mallory was forced to abruptly dodge a second wheeled messenger. He caught himself against a decorative cast iron column. The metal scorched his hands. Despite his lavish ornamentation, lotus blossoms, the column was a smokestack. He could hear it emitting the muffled roar and mutter of a badly adjusted flue. Consulting his map again, he entered a corridor lined left and right with officers or offices. White coated clerks ducked from door to door, dodging young messenger boys rolling about with card laden wheelbarrows. The gas lights were brighter here, but they fluttered in a steady draft of wind. Mallory glanced over his shoulder. At the end of the hall stood a giant steel framed ventilator fan. It squealed faintly on an oiled chain drive, propelled by an unseen motor in the bowels of the pyramid. Mallory began to feel rather dazed, like this has all been a grave mistake. Surely there were better ways to pursue the mystery of Derby Day than hunting pimps with some bureaucratic crony of Oliphant's. The very air of the place oppressed him, scorched and soapy and lifeless. The floors and walls polished with and gleaming. He'd never before seen a place so utterly free of common dirt. These halls reminded him of something, another labyrinthine journey. Lord Darwin. Mallory and the great savant had been walking the leaf shadowed, hedgy lanes of Kent, Darwin poking at the moist black soil with his walking stick. Darwin talking on and on in his endless, methodical, crushingly detailed way of earthworms. Earthworms. Always invisibly busy underfoot, so that even great sarsen stones slowly sank into the loam. Darwin had measured the process at Stonehenge in an attempt to date the ancient monument. Mallory tugged hard at his beard, his map forgotten in his hand. A vision came to him of earthworms churning in catastrophic frenzy till the soil roiled and bubbled like a witch's brew. In years, mere months perhaps, all the monuments of slower eons would sink, shipwrecked to primeval bedrock. Sir, may I be of service? Mallory came to himself with a start. A white coated clerk was confronting him, staring into his face his face with bespectacled suspicion. Mallory glared back, confused. For a divine moment, he had poised on the brink of revelation, and now it was gone, as miserably inglorious as a failed sneeze. Worse yet, Mallory now realized he had been muttering aloud again about earthworms, presumably. Gruffly, he proffered his map. I'm looking for level 5, QC 50. Well, that would be quantitative criminology, sir. This is deterrence research. The clerk pointed at a shingle hung above a nearby office. Mallory nodded numbly. QC is just past nonlinear analysis around the corner to your right, the clerk said. Mallory moved on. He could feel the clerk's skeptical eyes on his back. The QC section was a honeycomb of tiny partitions, the neck-high walls riddled with asbestos-lined cubbyholes. Gloved and aproned clerks sat neatly at their slanted desks, examining and manipulating punch cards with a variety of specialized clackers devices, shufflers, pin mounts, isinglass color coders, jeweler's loops, oiled tissues, and delicate rubber-tipped forceps. Mallory watched the familiar work with a happy lurch of reassurance. QC 50 was the office of the Bureau's Undersecretary of Quantitative Criminology, whose name Oliphant had said was Wakefield. Mr. Wakefield possessed no desk, or rather, his desk had encompassed and devoured the entirety of his office, and Wakefield worked from within it. Writing tables sprang from wall slots on an ingenious system of hinges, then vanished again into an arcane system of specialized cabinetry. There were newspaper racks, letter clamps, vast embedded card files, catalogs, code books, clackers guides, an elaborate multi-dialed clock, 3 telegraph dials whose gilded needles ticked out the alphabet, and printers busily punching tape. Wakefield himself was a pallid Scot with sandy, receding hair. His glance, if not positively evasive, was extremely mobile. A pronounced overbite dented his lower lip. He struck Mallory as very young for a man of his position, perhaps only 40. No doubt, like most accomplished clackers, Wakefield had grown up with the engine trade. Babbage's very first engine, now an honored relic, was still less than 30 years old, but the swift progression of enginery had swept a whole generation in his wake like some mighty locomotive of the mind. Mallory introduced himself. I regret my tardiness, sir, Mallory said. I find myself a bit lost in your halls. This was no news to Wakefield. May I offer you tea? We have a very fine sponge cake. Mallory shook his head, then opened his cigar case with a flourish. Smoke? Wakefield went pale. No, no, thank you. A fire hazard, strictly against regulations. Mallory put his case away, chagrined. I see, but I don't see any real harm in a tiny cigar. Do you? Ashes, Wakefield said firmly. And pneumatic particles. They flow through air, soil the cog oil, defile the gearing, and to clean the Bureau's engines. Well, I needn't tell you that's a Sisyphean task, Dr. Mallory. Surely, Mallory mumbled. He tried to change the subject. As you must know, I am a paleontologist, but I have some small expertise in clacking. How many gear yards do you spin here? Yards? We measure our gearage in miles here, Dr. Mallory. Oh, it's true. That much power. That much trouble, you might as easily say, Wakefield said with a modest flick of his white-gloved hand. Heat builds up from spinning friction, which expands the brass, which nicks the cog teeth. Damp weather curdles the gear oil, and in dry weather, a spinning engine can even create a small laden charge, which attracts all manner of dirt. Gears gum and jam, punch cards adhere to the loaders, Wakefield sighed. We found it pays well to take every precaution in cleanliness, heat, and humidity. Even our tea cake is baked specially for the bureau to reduce the risk of crumbs. This is like sometimes when I go into my local cafe here in Biloxi and it's like, you know, there's like icicles forming on the walls because it's so cold in there. And they say we have to keep it cold because of the croissant. So that's what they have to do. Ah, yes, Wakefield drawled. The dear old Institute of Engine Analytics. I wish we had the leisurely pace of the academics. They pamper their brass at Cambridge, but here in public service, we must run and rerun the most grueling routines till we wrap the document levers. Mallory, having been recently to the Institute, was up to date and determined to show it. Have you heard of the new Cambridge compilers? They distribute gearwear much more evenly. Wakefield ignored him. For Parliament and the police, the bureau is simply a resource, you see, always on demand, but kept on a tight lead for all of that funding, you see. They cannot fathom our requirements, sir. The old story, as I'm sure you know, a man of science yourself. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but the House of Commons can't tell true clacking from a wind-up cooking jack. Mallory tugged his beard. It does seem a pity, miles of gearing. When I imagine what might be accomplished with that, the prospect is breathtaking. Oh, I'm sure you'd catch your breath soon enough, Dr. Mallory, Wakefield said. In clacking, demand always expands to overmatch the capacity. It's as if it were a law of nature. Well, perhaps it is a law, Mallory said, in some realm of nature we've yet to comprehend. Wakefield smiled politely and shot a glance at the clock. A shame when one's higher aspirations are overwhelmed by daily practicalities. I don't often have the chance to discuss engine philosophy, except with my soy distant colleague, Mr. Oliphant, of course. Has he perhaps told you of his visionary schemes for our engines? Only quite briefly, Mallory said. It seemed to me his plans for social studies would demand more engine power than we have in Great Britain to monitor every transaction in Piccadilly and so forth. Struck me as a utopian fancy, frankly. In theory, sir, Wakefield responded, it is entirely possible. We naturally keep a brotherly eye on the telegram, traffic, credit records, and such. Oh, sounds like surveillance. The human element is our only true bottleneck. Oh, so humans are getting in the way of surveillance, even in this uh, alternative version of history. The human element is our only true bottleneck, you see, for only a trained analyst can turn raw engine data into workable knowledge. And the ambitious scale of that effort, when compared with the modest scale of the Bureau's current finding for personal, I'm sure I couldn't care to add to the pressing burden of your duty, Mallory broke in. But Mr. Oliphant did indicate that you might help me to identify a criminal at large and his female accomplice. Having completed 2 of your request forms in triplicate, I dispatched them by special messenger. Last week, yes, Wakefield nodded. And we've done our best for you. We're always happy to oblige gentlemen as peculiarly distinguished as Mr. Oliphant and yourself. An assault and a threat of death against a prominent savant is a serious matter, of course. Wakefield plucked up a needle sharp pencil and gridded pad of paper. But a rather commonplace business to attract Mr. Oliphant's specialized interests, isn't it? Mallory said nothing. Wakefield looked grave. You needn't fear to speak frankly, sir. This isn't the first time that Mr. Oliphant or his superiors have called on our resources. And of course, as a sworn officer of the crown, I can guarantee you the strictest confidentiality. Nothing you say will leave these walls. He leaned forward. So, what can you tell me, sir? Mallory thought hard and quickly. Whatever blunder Lady Ada had committed, whatever act of desperation or recklessness had led her into the clutches of the tout and his whore. He could not imagine it helped by the name Ada Byron going onto that gridded pad. And Oliphant, of course, would not approve. So Mallory feigned a reluctant confession. You have me at a disadvantage, Mr. Wakefield, for I don't believe there's much to the matter, nothing to truly earn me the privilege of your attention. As I said in my note to you, I encountered a drunken gambler at the Derby, and the rascal made a bit of a show with a knife. I thought little enough of it, but Mr. Oliphant suggested that I might be in genuine danger. He reminded me that one of my colleagues was murdered recently in odd circumstances, and the case is still unresolved. Professor Fenwick, the dinosaur savant? Rudwick, Mallory said. You know the case? Stabbed to death in a ratting den. Wakefield tapped his teeth with the pencil's rubber. Made all the papers, threw quite a bad light on the savantry. One feels that Rudwick rather let the side down. Mallory nodded. My sentiments exactly. But Mr. Oliphant seemed to feel that the incidents might be connected. Gamblers, stalking, and killing savants, Wakefield said. I see no motive, frankly. Unless perhaps, and do forgive the suggestion, a large gambling debt is involved. Were you and Rudwick close friends? Maybe wagering companions, perhaps? Not at all. I scarcely knew the man, and I gave no such debts, I assure you. Mr. Oliphant does not believe in accidents, Wakefield said. He seemed to have been convinced by Mallory's evasion, for he was clearly losing interest. Of course, it's only prudent of you to identify the rascal. If that's all you need of us, I'm sure we can be of service. I'll have a staffer take you to the library and the engines, and once we've this assailant's number, we'll be on firmer ground. Wakefield flipped up a hinged rubber stopper and shouted into a speaking tube. A young cockery clerk appeared in gloves and apron. This is our Mr. Tobias, Wakefield said. He's at your disposal. The interview was over. Wakefield's eyes were already glazing with the press of other business. He gave a mechanical bow. Pleasure to have met you, sir. Please let me know if we can be of any further service. You're most kind, Mallory said. The boy had shaven an inch of scalp at his hairline, elevating his forehead for a modishly intellectual look, but time had passed since the clerk's last harboring, for he now had a prickly ridge of stubble across the front of his noggin. Mallory followed him out of the maze of cubicles and into a hallway, noting his odd rolling gait. The clerk's shoe heels had worn so badly that the nails showed, and his cheap cotton stockings had bagged at the ankles. Where are we going, Mr. Tobias? Engines, sir, downstairs. They paused at the lift where an ingenious indicator showed that it was on another floor. Mallory reached into his trouser pocket. Past the jackknife and the keys, he pulled out a golden guinea. Here. What's this then? Tobias asked, taking it. It is what we call a tip, my boy, Mallory said with forced joviality. To ensure promptness, you know. Tobias examined the coin as if he had never seen the profile of Albert before. He gave Mallory a sharp and sullen look from behind his spectacles. The lift door opened. Tobias hid the coin in his apron. He and Mallory stepped aboard amid a small crowd, and the attendant ratcheted the cage down into the bureau's bowels. Mallory followed Tobias out of the lift, past a rack of pneumatic mail chutes, and through a pair of swinging doors, their edges lined with thick felt. They were alone again. Tobias stopped short. You should know better than to offer gratuities to a public servant. Well, you look as if you could use it, Mallory said. 10 days' wage. Expect I could, providing I find you right and fly. I mean no harm, Mallory said mildly. This place is strange territory. In such circumstances, I found it wise to have a native guide. What's wrong with the boss, then? I was hoping you'd tell me that, Mr. Tobias. More than the coin, the remark itself seemed to win Tobias over, and he shrugged. Wakey's not so bad. If I were him, I wouldn't act any different. But he ran your number today, governor, and he pulled a stack on you 9 inches high. You've some talkative friends, you do, Mr. Mallory. Did he now? Mallory said, forcing a smile. That file must make interesting reading. I'd surely like a look at it. I do suppose that intelligence might find its way to improper hands, the boy allowed. Of course, 'twould be worth a fellow's job if he were caught at it. Do you like your work, Mr. Tobias? Pays not much. Gaslight ruins your eyes, but it has advantages. He shrugged again and pushed his way through another door into a clattering anteroom, 3 of its walls lined with shelves and card files, the 4th with fretted glass. Behind the glass loomed a vast hall of towering engines, so many that at first Mallory thought the walls must surely be lined with mirrors like a fancy balloon or like a fancy ballroom. It was like some carnival deception meant to trick the eye. The giant identical engines, clock-like constructions of intricately interlocking brass, big as rail cars set on end, each on its foot-thick padded blocks. The whitewashed ceiling, 30 feet overhead, was alive with spinning pulley belts, the lesser gears drawing power from tremendous smoke-spoked flywheels on socketed iron columns. White-coated clackers, dwarfed by their machines, paced the spotless aisles. Their hair was swaddled in wrinkled white berets, their mouths and noses hidden behind squares of white gauze. Tobias glanced at these majestic racks of gearage with absolute indifference. All day staring at little holes, no mistakes either. Hit a key punch wrong, and it's all the difference between a clergyman and an arsonist. Many's the poor innocent bastard ruined like that. Oops. Let's see if I can get to the next page. Oh no. Why isn't it working? It's working. Okay. The tick and sizzle of the monster clockwork muffled his words. The men, well dressed and quiet, were engrossed in their work in the library. They bent together over a large square album of color plates. Pray, have a seat, Tobias said. Mallory seated himself at a library table in a maple swivel chair mounted on rubber wheels while Tobias selected a card file. He sat opposite Mallory and leafed through the cards, pausing to dab a gloved finger in a small container of beeswax. He retrieved a pair of cards. Were these your requests, sir? I filled out paper questionnaires, but you put all that in engine form? Well, QC took the request, Tobias said, squinting, but we had to route it to criminal anthropometry. The cards seen use, they've done a deal of the sorting work already. He rose suddenly and fetched a loose leaf notebook, a clacker's guide. He compared one of Mallory's cards to some ideal within the book and a look of distracted disdain. Did you fill the forms out completely, sir? I think so, Mallory hedged. Height of suspect, the boy mumbled. Reach, length, and width of left ear, left foot, left forearm, left forefinger. I supplied my best estimates, Mallory said. Why just the left side, if I may ask? Less affected by physical work, Tobias said absently. Age, coloration of skin, hair, eyes, scars, birthmarks. Ah, now then, deformities. The man had a bump on the side of his forehead, Mallory said. Frontal flagiocephaly, the boy said, checking his book. Rare, and that's why it struck me. But that should be useful. There's spoony on skills in criminal anthropometry. Tobias plucked up the cards, dropped them through a slot, and pulled a bell rope. There was a sharp clanging, and in a moment a clacker arrived for the cards. Now what? Mallory said. We wait for it to spin through, the boy said. How long? It always takes twice as long as you think, the boy said, settling back in his chair, even if you double your estimate. Something of a natural law. Mallory nodded. The delay could not be helped and might be useful. Have you worked here long, Mr. Tobias? Not long enough to go mad, Mallory chuckled. You think I'm joking, Tobias said darkly. Why do you work here if you hate it so? Everyone hates it who has a spark of sense, Tobias said. Of course, it's fine work here if you work the top floors and are one of the big uns. He jabbed his gloved thumb discreetly at the ceiling, which I ain't, of course, but mostly the work needs little folk. They need us by the scores and dozens and hundreds. We come and go. 2 years of this work, maybe three, makes your eyes and your nerves go. You can go quite mad from staring at little holes, mad as a dancing dormouse. Tobias slid his hands into his apron pockets. I'll wager you think, sir, from looking at us low clerks dressed like so many white pigeons that we're all the same inside. But we ain't. Not at all. You see, there's only so many people in Britain who can read and write and spell and add as neat as they need here. Most coves who can do that, they'll get far better work if they have a mind to look. So the Bureau gets your, well, unsettled sorts. Tobias smiled thinly. They've even hired women sometimes. Seamstresses, what lost their jobs to knitting jennies. Government hire them to read and punch cards. Very good at detail work, your former seamstresses. It seems an odd policy, Mallory said. Pressure of circumstance, Tobias said. Nature of the business. You ever work for Her Majesty's government, Mr. Mallory? In a way, Mallory said. He'd worked for the Royal Society's Commission on Free Trade. He believed their patriotic talk and their promises of backstage influence. And they'd cut him loose to fend for himself when they were through with him. A private audience with the commission's Lord Gallen, a warm handshake, an expression of deep regret that there could be no open recognition of his gallant service, and that was all. Not so much as a signed scrap of paper. Well, what kind of government work? Tobias said. Ever seen the so-called land leviathan? In the museum, Tobias said, Brontosaurus, they call it, a reptile elephant, had its teeth in the end of the trunk. The beast ate trees. Clever chap, Tobias. You're Leviathan Mallory, Tobias said, the famous savant. And he flushed bright red. A bell rang. Tobias leapt to his feet. He took a pamphlet of accordant paper from a tray in the wall.
You can help us continue our work by becoming a patron at patreon.com/bookofhours, or leave us a one-time donation at paypal.me/bookofhours. Or you can use Cash App. Thank you.